What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to Down to the Wire. I'm your host, Brian Costa, and today on episode 71 of the podcast, I have a very special guest in store for you guys. I know I say that way too often. I know I get criticized by my friend Robert Shelley. He'll always come at me and say, Brian, you always say every episode's a special episode. But listen, guys, when I say I have a special episode, I really, really do mean it. Joining me on the podcast today is an individual that I've watched some of his work for many years at this point, and I'm really honored to get him on the podcast. Kind of going back at it, it's actually really cool that I was able to do this in the first place. But as you guys know, on Down to the Wire, I like to interview individuals from all sorts of backgrounds. I've interviewed athletes like Michael Green III, who's now committing to Robert Morris University, as well as recently in my last episode, Ronell Joseph, who is a cornerback at Bryant University. But joining me on the podcast today is an American comedian from, I actually just learned this very recently. He actually is from New England, and he's also appeared on the We Watch Wrestling podcast. He's the host over there. He has appeared on Conan O'Brien, and he's also been a key figure over at the College Humor website. He's done a lot of stuff over there. So without further ado, welcome into the show, Matt McCarthy. Matt, how you doing today, man?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Matt, it's a blast to get you on the show today. I'm really actually stoked I was able to do this in the first place. When I was getting this whole interview together, I was kind of talking to you about this before the show. I had watched some of your work for many years at this point going into it. I had, watched you on College Humor with my friend Pat Edwards and, some other friends like that. Even though the website is called College Humor, we were probably watching your episodes back in middle school and stuff like that, which probably wasn't for the best, but we were doing that anyways. We were watching a bunch of stuff like that. But kind of going into it, when I was doing stuff like this, and even when I told my friends, hey, I'm doing this interview with this guy from College Humor, and they were like, oh my God, like you're doing an interview with him? I was like, yeah, like it's actually really cool. That was one of the interactions I got. Another funny interaction I got happened when I was with my dad. And I was saying I was doing an interview with Matt McCarthy, and I know that you had said to me before the show that you had like a little bit of a New England kind of background here. I don't know if you remember too much about like New England sports radio, but here now there's actually a sports radio guy. He actually has a baseball podcast up here. His name's Matt McCarthy. And when I said Matt McCarthy around my dad, he ended up saying, "Oh my God, that guy, you're having him on your podcast?" I'm like, "No, Dad, like no, not that guy."
Oh, that's hilarious.
I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "Oh, he doesn't know anything about the Red Sox. He's saying fire Heim Bloom, do this." I'm like, "Matt McCarthy said that?" And he's like, "Yeah, you didn't hear him?" I'm like, "No, I really didn't."
Well, you know what? Your old man's right. I don't know anything about the Red Sox. I I fell off watching after they won the series. It was like I was like, oh man, this is there was something lost. I was psyched that it happened, but it was I was never a big, like you said, I've always been a big pro wrestling fan. And at the tail end of college, I graduated from Fordham in 2001.
Okay, yeah.
I started watching more a little bit more baseball than I ever did in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the Sox won, I was like, well, there's nothing left for me here. Type of thing.
Fair enough. I get that, like after 2004 and everything that went on with that, like it kind of was a big kind of coming together, and it's like, where do you go from here? And I mean, they've won 3 since, but it's like when you break an 86-year curse, it's it's hard to go up from that point.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. But no. I don't. I should probably get into a fight with this other Matt McCarthy.
Yeah, honestly, you probably should. I mean, this guy, you should see who's the more dominant one over in New England side. You probably could. I think you could take him.
That's funny. I actually once tried. I got suspended from Facebook for like 30 or 60 days or something because I tried friend requesting every Matt McCarthy on Facebook. And then they for some reason that was against the rules, I guess, or maybe I was sending out too many requests at once, or
probably,
I don't know. Does Jim Shorts on Sports, does he still do sports talk radio? I think he was on HJJ. He would pop up on 94 HJY and be like, Jim Shorts on Sports. I forget his real name. He coached like baseball in and around like Rumford and East Providence and stuff.
Yeah.
Does that ring a bell?
Nah, I don't think it does, unfortunately. I mean, that might be more Rhode Island centric. I think up in
Yeah.
Massachusetts we probably get more of that stuff. So that may still be going down to Rhode Island, but I'm unfortunately just like not the greatest knowledge with that.
Yeah, that was the one that would, I mean, this is also like, 30 years ago. So it's like he may have he may be retired. I don't know, but it would always be like,
Fair,
Jim
fair
Shorts
enough.
on Sports, 94 HJY.
Fair enough. Nice. But man, I was really psyched to get you on this podcast. I was talking about a lot of the things that you have been involved with throughout your career, but kind of taking things back to the beginning. When did you really get involved with comedy and acting and everything like that in the first place? Like, when did this all kind of start for you?
Um, I mean, it's always what I wanted to do. Since I was a little kid, I always loved. Just my favorite thing in the world was laughing, and my brother's really funny. My father's really funny. And that's like, I just wanted to. I liked the idea of like being funny and just having fun. And then when I was probably like 9, before it was Comedy Central. Actually, before it was Comedy Central, it was CTV for like a couple weeks, and then before that, it was called the Comedy Channel, and for like a few years, and they showed a lot of clips of stand-up comedy, movies. They had like weird original programming, and so once that started, it was like I was already, that's all I was interested in. And, my brother had like Steve Martin records, and, anybody my age would be lying if they didn't say they grew up like a big fan of Bill Cosby. Unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yeah. We know where things have gone since, but it's okay.
Right.
It's okay to say that.
Right.
We know.
And so then once that popped up on cable, that's really all I watched. And then it's all I wanted to do. And then once I got, towards the end of high school and going to college, it was like, parents and teachers and guidance counselors and like girlfriends, they're all like, that's not a real job. You need to find like a real job and get a major, get an internship, get a blah, blah, blah. And I always like, now I'm like, I wish that, nothing was going to throw me off. And I started doing this, okay, I gotta get a contact from school and, just start working some data entry job, and, straight out of college. And it was just, it wasn't miserable. That's too strong of a word, but I was just like, I was like, this isn't what I want to be doing. And I just didn't have anybody. It's also such a long time ago. It's like, there just wasn't anybody that I could reach out to and be like, how do I do this? And even just the idea that it was like a possibility. Oh, thank you so much. And it's just like anything. It's just like any career path. It's like, you just got to start at the bottom and start doing it. And so then for me, it was like, I was in New York. I graduated school in spring of 2001.
Okay.
And then I was in New York when 9/11 happened. And that was like a real life-changing experience for me personally, especially just because I was like, oh, like I'm guaranteed nothing. Like this is, it was a real wake-up call of like, stop wasting your time. And so it's actually on the year anniversary in 2002. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that was like a whole year ago, and I'm still just working in this job I don't like. So then like I made a promise to myself. I was like, well, before the end of 2003, before my birthday, I'm going to start doing stand-up, because that was like all I ever really wanted to do. And then I just started doing open mics, which it's like anything where there's no, because also at the time I had one of my best friends was in med school and my brother was in law school. And I remember being like, you know what? I came to the decision. I was like, what I'm going to do is harder than both those things. And both those things sounded impossible to me. But I was like, but they have like a clearly defined path and they have people in front of them, like giving them a syllabus and giving them like, do this, do this, do this. And I didn't have any of that. I was just like, I guess I sign up for an open mic. And then it was just, making mistakes and trying things. And then slowly I became, like part of just like a scene that was happening that I didn't even realize was a scene at the time,
Yeah.
And it's really weird now, almost like 20 years later, because it's like to see, people that are like mega famous. And I'm like, really? That guy? Type of thing. Like, shit, I remember that guy just eating shit at the, can I swear?
Oh, yeah, I don't care.
Okay. And open mics and stuff and whatever. But I mean, it just became one thing led to the next, it just became meeting people and just like, going, asking to do spots and, writing stuff. And then, somebody knew somebody who was like, hey, there's a casting director who they want to see people they've never seen before. And I went into audition for a commercial and wound up booking that. And then it was just, it just became one thing after the next. And each year became, even more exciting than the previous one. And it just, there is such and now it's like, Christ, it's like, it's I don't know if it's easier or harder to get noticed now, because it's like the internet wasn't what it was back then. Like there wasn't even YouTube.
Yeah.
Even when like me and Peter Holmes started making videos, it was like we had to find a guy. Like it was like, oh, our friend Oren Brimmer, who shot everything that we did and cut everything together. It was like he's got cameras and lights and like knows, and it's like, oh yeah, it's like shit that we're doing this thing over our phones. It's insane.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
Yeah. So, yeah, but it's like the playing field gets, it gets easier to get content out there, but it also means more people are doing it. So it's like it gets easier to put yourself out there, but then it gets harder to get noticed. So
yeah, it's harder to,
I don't know.
Like it's easier to put more content out there for sure. I think what makes it harder, like you were saying, is trying to now find out what separates you from that other guy, and like try to be like, all right, I think there's like over like millions of podcasts now out there like that, and it's like okay, what's going to separate this show from the next show? What's going to do this from the next? Like and the same thing has gone with like content creators and stuff like that too. That's kind of always been the big kind of thing going on there. One of the things I've noticed with your comedy that I always really enjoyed was always you kind of knew how to you always kind of had a clever sense of when to use certain inflection. I always kind of noticed that, like where you'd be doing some jokes, and the way you would use your voice in a certain way, it was always perfect for that scene. And I always found that to be rather interesting when you would do that.
Thank you. I don't know. I think it just comes from just watching. Just I maybe I didn't realize it at the time, or I don't know how soon it dawned on me. But like everything I was watching, I was studying, and trying to mimic, and the just like John Candy or John Belushi or
yeah.
those type of, because I specifically remember watching like a rerun of SNL.
Yeah.
And like Dana Carvey was on.
Okay.
And I remember wondering to myself, I was like, well, it's like, how do you do that? How do you become an actor that just does comedy? I'm like, because I don't know, like the idea of doing drama, or like the idea of like doing plays and like trying to be serious seemed impossible to me. But I was like, but I feel like I could do funny stuff. And then when I started doing, any performing at all, I was like, oh, there's there's really no difference. It's just, you know, the stuff that's funny usually isn't funny when the person is trying to be funny. It's more, you know, when it's rooted in reality or whatever. But I remember being like, well, stand up, I don't know, it just seemed like, I don't know, but I was just, it just came from, you know, watching again, you know, just having like a love of wanting to do it. And it was strange, like being a part of, like, because I always did stand up in New York before I moved to LA, and then it was like, you know, the scene like suddenly like kind of blew up, and it was like, oh geez, like there's all of a sudden one day there was like a lot of people doing stand up. And it's pretty wild. Like I remember, and it's, I like put it this way, I remember the first time it was like, I mean, I remember when like suddenly comic books, like I feel like even before the Marvel movies, there was already like it was getting, suddenly it was cool to read comic books. And I was like, this was never cool. And then like, I remember like Weird Al came up with a record, and it was like, everybody was like, oh, this is like so cool. And I was like, Weird Al was never cool. This was not something you like, you know. And so, and comedy was kind of that thing too, where it was just like, because in the 90s there was a huge because the 80s boom happened, and then in the 90s it was like, it was pretty scarce. There were still stand-ups, and then it was almost all the sitcoms on TV were, you know, like a stand-up. It kind of, everything became like a Seinfeld or a, you know, Home Improvement clone. And it's funny, like I did the New Faces show at the Just for Laughs Montreal Comedy Festival in 07, I think. And going to the parties, and people were like, oh, what show are you doing? I was like, oh, New Faces. And they're like, almost without exception, the reaction I got was like, oh man, you do New Faces like a year or two too late. It's just like, nobody cares anymore. And it was just like, for real. And it was like, because they were like, man, like a couple of years ago, even if you were just booked on New Faces, you would get like a development deal. And I was like, oh, cool, good to know that I'm and then by like the next year, it's like 08, things started like blowing up again. And I was like, I love that I snuck in during this like down period where nobody cared. Well, God, yeah.
Oh man, I can definitely tell you that tell you enough people cared, because, you know, I know that, you know, the way I discovered you, which I mentioned, you know, at the beginning of the show, was through College Humor. That was kind of the way I kind of, you know, found you in a lot of ways like that. How did that all kind of come about? Like, how did you really get, I mean, frankly, in my mind, like I haven't really watched too much College Humor since. I, you know, for the guys over there doing their thing, I wish them the best. But in my mind, like during your era of when you were there, and I'd say maybe up till about like 2014, 15 or so ish, like I'd have to say College Humor was like thriving. Like almost all the content they were putting out was like great material. And unfortunately, a lot of the great guys that they had there ended up leaving, and that kind of is probably why I haven't watched as much of it since. But how were you able to get in with them during like such a great period of time? Like, how did that all come about?
It was just, you know, right place, right time. And, you know, we were kind of in the same, we were just in the same circles. You know, it was I was just one of the people in New York in the, you know, I like at the time there was like this thing of like, oh, well, there's club comics and then there's alt comics. And I was like, I'm just doing shows wherever somebody will ask me to come do a show, you know? I don't know. And so like being in like the downtown scene, it was also just, you're just actually performing for comedy fans and not just performing for people who like got barked in because it's like, hey, we've got all your favorite comics from, you know, Letterman and Chappelle show, and you know, and they got like drink tickets or, you know, whatever. It's just like there's a difference. There's a stark difference performing for people who are just out drinking,
Yeah.
and then people who are actually like interested in comedy.
Yeah.
And so I just fell into doing those shows because those were the, you know, those were the shows I enjoyed going to, and those were the, you know, audiences that were, you know, got what I was going for. And just being in that circle just started, like, I was friends with kids at UCB doing improv. I was friends with, you know, a lot of the people who were writing at College Humor and performing. And then it just became, I think the first thing I ever did was they did some, I don't even remember what it was called, but they did like some all night marathon where it was
College Humor's all nighter.
That's it. And so it was just, that's what it was, is it was a, you know, where they're, I don't know if they wrote the stuff that same day but it was just like shooting everything and putting it up all that night. And it was just like,
yeah,
you know, madness.
Yeah, it was.
And
I think that was the whole point of it. It was just like absolute absurdity.
And it was in the middle of the night too. So I think the first thing I did was the Devil Sticks, where I played the devil, and I showed up, and it was like God, who even wrote it? Who was in it with me? I think Pat was in it.
Okay.
I don't remember, but I just remember like having the idea in my head of like, I think they want me to like improvise, and well, not improvise, but like ad lib, just like, you know, go off script and like, you know, take what's already there and you know, make it my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I very much did that, and it was and it was like, I think I was like, you know, I'd like to keep, like, this seems cool and this is the kind of thing I want to be doing, so hopefully, you know, I can make an impression. And I think I made an impression, and then they, you know, invited me back, and it was just I was constantly being invited to perform in sketches. Mm-hmm. At the same time, me, Pete Holmes, and Oren Brimmer were making our own videos under the banner Front Page Films, and just whatever we could shoot in our apartments or on the street, very low budget, cast our friends, you know, no money type of stuff. And then Pete had the idea for the first Batman video.
Oh,
geez. and then we were like, why don't we pitch this to College Humor, and then they'll pay for it so that we can actually make it look better than, you know, what we were able to afford at the time.
Yeah.
And then that first Batman, you know, Batman Vanishing, you know, the whole gimmick is every time somebody turns around, Batman disappears. And so it's like, I'm Commissioner Gordon and I catch him. I was like, oh, were you about to sneak away? And then somehow that blew up. Like Patton Oswalt retweeted it, Kevin Smith retweeted it, and I mean,
you ended up, I think you guys ended up getting Patton Oswalt you got him in like one of the like sequel episodes after
oh
that, right?
Yeah, like he
ended up playing the Penguin.
Yeah, one of the last ones we did, he was the Penguin. Yeah, totally.
And then the gimmick in that one was that Batman didn't actually realize that he wasn't, like, his moral code is he can't kill people, but meanwhile he was just slaying people like left and right.
He's too stupid to know that he's killing people. So then that, like, you know, turned into another thing, and then other writers at College Humor were casting me and stuff like constantly. I mean, you know, almost on a like weekly or monthly basis. And then, like you said, people just moved on to other things. People wound up at SNL. People wound up, a lot of the, I mean, ultimately with College Humor, it's like they got bought by a big company, and then eventually the big company was like, we're not doing this anymore. And then, it just was, nobody I knew was really involved anymore. And, it's just kind of, it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, that's just what happens throughout time with that. Yeah, exactly. So kind of going off that, I mean, I've, the whole Batman or the Badman series, I think as they were called over there, which I very, very to the point there. It was very understanding as such. I mean, you had a really good role over there. You talking about your role as Commissioner Gordon. I think you also in one episode, you also played both Commissioner Gordon and Two-Face.
Yeah, almost. I mean, if I wasn't Gordon, I was the villain in almost all of them, and some people don't even realize that.
I was looking at the comments under some of the videos, and some people were like, "It's been 12 years, and I just realized that Matt is playing both guys here." I was like, and people were like, "Wait, really?" They were like, "Oh my god, he is."
Yeah, because when we did the Two-Face one. I'm clean shaven because I had started working at WWE at that point.
Okay.
And I actually flew out to LA. I lied to WWE about why I needed the weekend off. I said like I had a friend's wedding that was already planned before I started working there, because that's like a place where it's just like you don't get time off.
Yeah.
And just as an odd coincidence, they were also, WWE was on the West Coast. They might have even been in LA that weekend. So it was like this, like I'm on the plane. I'm like, I'm gonna get caught. I saw like some office people on the plane. I was like, oh my God, this is so bad. And then even at the time, like Dolph Ziggler, who's a wrestler at WWE, was dating Amy Schumer. And I remember after we shot some stuff, because this is 2012, very beginning of 2012. Yeah. And I remember Pete was like, we're going to go to a party, and it was at, I don't know, somebody's place, like some comedian who was way more famous than us, like Sarah Silverman or somebody. Oh, sure. And I was like, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to walk in. Schumer's going to be there. Ziggler's in town. They're going to be together. Dolph's going to be like, why are you at this party? It's not like he's going to stooge me off. It's just going to be part of a conversation that's finally going to get to someone who's like, he was supposed to be at a wedding. And I'm like, the whole thing's going to, so I just went,
it's all going to, the whole house of cards is going to come crashing
down. Right.
I'm
like, Pete, just give me the keys to your apartment. I'm sleeping on his couch. I'm like, that's where I'm going. You two go have fun. Goodbye. I just saw it all. Because there's at WWE, there's nothing but opportunities to get heat for what you're doing wrong, or you're disrespecting somebody, or this, that. I mean, it's just, that place.
That seems very, just with the whole WWE in general, that seems very seems like kind of expected as to what you kind of see from there.
100%.
It's just like, oh, what could go wrong? Kind of, you talked about some of your series with the Badman series and all the stuff going on there. One of the episodes that I really, it was, I don't know if it's as well known as all the other episodes like that you've done, but it was one of my favorite sketches, and when I was watching College Humor with my friends, it was one of just our favorite sketches in general. It was a sketch called The Other Team, and I still love that. I still love that sketch to this day, because for anyone who hasn't seen it, the point of the sketch, it takes kind of those like classic, like cheesy, like 80s, 90s, even early 2000s movies of like Angels in the Outfield, Air Bud, where, like these downtrodden teams get some like miracle kind of like solution to help them like win, and they end up beating like these like overpowered, like incredibly like well-oiled machine like run teams, and it's like, how is this even possible? And like it ended up showing like the other side of the teams just being like, how the heck did we actually just lose to a dog? Like, why are there angels in the outfield? Like, why are there certain things like this going on? Like, why are we so like downtrodden in it? And you ended up playing the coach of this team that, you know, at one point it goes from football, then the next point it goes to the next point it goes to baseball. It was all over the place in like a matter of like two plus minutes or so. And it all, and you're ecstatic in that scene. I mean, I remember you going off. I was actually just watching again recently, and you guys all come to a head, and you guys end up just saying, all right, we're going out, we're winning this game at all costs. Like you were just like, you're like, all right. And like you just started listing off different opportunities. It's like all right, we're bringing, if there's a werewolf point guard, we're bringing silver bullets. If there's flubber on the court, we're bringing acid. Like, we don't care what we're doing. We're breaking all the rules because they are too. And that's one of my favorite skits. Do you remember anything from that skit? And, you know, what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that was actually after the Devil Sticks. That was the very first thing I was cast in. That was, um, that was oddly enough, I did a scene in the movie, the Will Ferrell movie, The Other Guys. Also shot in that. It was, they were both shot in the same building. There's a I think the building's gone now, but there was a like a old Catholic school that was empty, and then the diocese would rent it out for shoots. So one of the classrooms actually, and the jeggings, the first couple of jeggings were in that same building. So I spent a lot of time in that building. Yeah. So strange. And then so in the basement was where we shot the other team. And again, I've never taken an acting class. Like, I took some like level 1, 2, and 3 at UCB, just because I was like, well, I'm not gonna do, I don't have any plans on being on an improv team, or like, any of that, or like doing a Herald team or anything like that. I was like, I just want to be a better performer. I was like, I just want to be a better stand-up and, all around performer. So that's as close as, so my point is like, I don't know how to act. I just, I just do what I think I just do it. I just think I just do what I think is correct. So there's actually one scene in that, I think it's leading up to the climax of that sketch, where I'm like punching and kicking a locker.
Just beating in a locker. Yeah.
And so I was really punching and kicking the locker, and I cut up my hand pretty bad doing that, because I was like, I'm just bad at this. I don't know how to do it and not do it.
So that way you don't actually injure yourself.
Right. Because I mean, it's like every documentary I ever saw about like acting, they always do a documentary about like these method actors who are like, oh, he was really doing that. I was like, oh, I guess that's what you do. You actually have to punch the locker, So I had a bad bruise on the side of my hand for a while after that. And then it was just, I mean, it was so hot down there. It was like the summer, and we're in like a basement in Brooklyn. But God, it was so much fun. And like, I mean, one of the,
you in that scene, you just looked absolutely just, I mean, you played the role perfectly. You looked absolutely just like distraught. Like, you just like,
right.
You looked like a man at the end of his road.
Well, like I found on every audition I go on, if I can read the thing once and I'm like, oh, I understand this, I almost 10 times out of 10, I will book the job, because I was like, oh, it just came from years of watching TV, watching movies, and just getting, because with writing, they say the way you learn how to write is by reading. So I think the way you learn how to act is by watching, movies and TV and stuff. And so when I read that script, I was like, this is absolutely hilarious. And I was like, yeah, I get this. It's the other team, it's just, we could do a million of these.
Oh yeah.
So it was so fun. And it was, and then also so strange, like a month or two later, or whenever it was, I do a movie called The Other Guys, which is basically the same premise, but about action movies. And then, like I said, like the jeggings videos, which, I mean, I don't know if you know, but like, I was like, oh, I understand this. I just want to be a better performer. I was like, I just want to be a better stand-up and, all around performer. So that's as close as,
Yeah.
it goes back and forth whether people know me, like, because when I started posting things on TikTok, it's like it's all, the people who are watching those videos, and they're either like, oh my god, this guy hates jeggings, or they're like, oh my god, Harvey Dent, can we trust him? And then once in a while, like the third most popular thing I did on College Humor was the Nick Cage's agent, which we did some permutations on. And I think the last time I was at College Humor, they did like another beat of those. I think I was like Kanye's publicist,
Kanye's agent.
Something Kanye something. And that was really weird because I was like, I didn't know anybody. Like, and we shot that at the College Humor office, and I was like, I don't know anyone here. This is but it's just,
it was just like this.
Well, as you get older, you find out like, oh, things change. Scenes start, scenes go away. Venues open, venues closed. I used to perform at lots of places in New York that are gone now. Rafifi, Mo Pickens, or like in LA, like Meltdown. I mean, it's just, it's don't get old. That's my advice to everyone.
Oh, jeez. But man, that was always one of my favorite sketches. But
Thank
you also mentioned, I had that I really do love that sketch, and me and my friends, like, we would always bust out laughing, especially at the end as you're getting carried away, and like even after it cuts to the credits and it just goes back, it's like, yeah, he's most likely gonna get the death penalty. Like that, just that
that's right.
at the end. I was like, that's all. I was like, they knew, like, at College Humor, like during that period, it was like there was always just like a little bit more that they could add, and they just always would throw it in. I was like, that was like the perfect touch. But I actually didn't realize that the other guys and all that stuff was kind of shot in the same area. I saw that you, when I was like, doing some more research on you going into it, I actually saw that you had a role in the other guys. I was like, wait, really? Like, and because the other guys, I don't think I had watched it until actually quarantine. It was just never something that I had ever watched. I really got into a lot more movies during quarantine. And then I looked it up again. I was like, oh my God, Matt was in the interrogation scene where, or not the interrogation scene, but the therapy scene where, where it turns out that Mark Wahlberg shot Jeter.
Yeah, what was crazy about that day is, first of all, like we shot a bunch of stuff without Wahlberg in it.
Yeah.
And Bobby Cannavale's in that scene, and it was like, he wasn't Bobby Cannavale at that point. I just remember sitting there like watching him like do his thing, and I just remember thinking like, wow, this guy's really good. I hope things work out for him. And now he's in everything. I mean, my God, he's one of the best parts of The Irishman. And so then when Wahlberg finally came in, like with anything, I found like you shoot more than actually makes it into the movie. And so there was a lot of stuff that we shot, and it's, if there was ever an extended cut of just that scene, I think people would see what I'm talking about, how funny it was. Wahlberg comes in.
Yeah.
And he wasn't the most he didn't do anything or say anything. It was just, he was just uncomfortable to be around. He just kind of, he brought like an energy with him, and it was just like, it just felt
it just kind of like a tension almost.
It was very tense, and every time Adam McKay and the whole setup, they're in like the next classroom, and it's every time the director would say cut, like Wahlberg was up and he would leave the room, like he didn't talk to anybody. He was just, and I was like, this is uncomfortable. And at one point, in the scene, I have like a styrofoam coffee cup, and Adam McKay's like, why don't you throw the cup at Wahlberg's head? It's an empty cup, but I'm just like, all right. So now I'm like throwing the cup at Wahlberg's face, and I'm like, this is really uncomfortable now. And then one take we did, McKay's like, Mark, why don't you pick up the cup and throw it back at him? And when I tell you, he launched this coffee cup at my head. Like it was incredible, and it zoomed right by me, and then like I made a face at him like, you're a loser, you tried to throw it at me and you missed, which I was like, I don't know if that was the smartest thing to do, but I was in the scene. And this didn't make it into the movie, but the original ending was Will Ferrell is now in the group therapy session with us.
Okay.
And you want to talk about night and day. Like Will Ferrell comes in, and it was like a light, it was like a weight, it was like a cloud had lifted or something. Yeah. And it was just, he could not have been more, just easy to be around. And like we broke for, to change the cameras or something. And he came over to me and he was like, I had a commercial that I was in running at the time. He goes, "Hey, you're so funny in that commercial. Like, thanks for doing this." And I was like, "What, are you kidding me?" And like, I was like talking to him for a while, and I was just like, "This is like the greatest."
Yeah, it's like night and day.
Right. But the line I have in the movie, I actually improvised, because it's the whole thing is Mark Wahlberg's character has shot Derek Jeter mistakenly. Yeah. And I scream, he's a biracial angel. And that was not my line. Actually, they gave my line to Bobby Cannavale, because I was just so nervous and tense. It was the first movie I'd ever been in. And I was just like, and Wahlberg was like in my head. And I was just like, this is, my line was, because you shot Jeter. That's all I had to say. And every time I said it, I could hear it. I'm like, why am I saying it weird? I was like, it's just, I'm not doing it right. It's like, because you shot Jeter. There's nothing to that line. And I kept, and like McKay would be like, you're kind of doing this weird inflection, or like, I don't know. And I'm like, I know, I don't know why I'm doing it. I'm hearing myself doing it. And with each take, and they keep having me do it again and again, and I'm not getting it right. And I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna get cut out of this movie. And then McKay's like, Bobby, why don't you deliver the line? He did it one time, and that's the take that's in the movie. And when that happens, I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna be cut out of this movie. I'm like, this is the biggest opportunity in my life, and I'm blowing it. And so I was like, I gotta think of something funny to say. And so then it comes to me to deliver some line, and McKay's big on like, make it your own. If you think something funnier, say it. And so then I don't even know what the line was, or it was just say something. And I go, he's a biracial angel. And it like, they came apart, and he's like, oh my God. Like, and then once that happened, I was like, okay, I can do this, because it's no different than anything I had been doing up to that point. I was just in my head, because I was like, oh my God. But God bless him, but Mark Wahlberg scared the shit out of me, and I was just like, I don't want to be around this guy. He's too much.
No, I feel like I could definitely see that with Wahlberg.
Yeah.
Like he's just like that's just that kind of a presence. I feel like it's just like, it's like,
yeah, he brought a lot.
Oh, jeez.
He brought a lot.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. The other thing that obviously you were hinting at before getting into a little bit with the other guys. You had talked about also some of the beginning of the Jegging series videos taking place in that abandoned religious school. That obviously was a major hit when that came out, and like I mean, College Humor is still like posting that now on their TikTok, and I saw you comment under it, and you were kind of just like, hey, that's me. I was like, oh shoot, this guy's on TikTok. Let me go check him out. And
I'm like, forget it. I'm like, well, if they're gonna post the video, I'm at least gonna be like, hey, I'm over here. Maybe I'll get a couple followers.
Yeah, exactly. So like. Do you remember that kind of? Do you remember going in for that sketch? Like, and like how like. Did you ever anticipate that kind of being like as big of a sketch as it really became?
No way. That was when I was just like once or twice a month, just, McCarthy's shooting something with College Humor. They were putting out so much content
Oh my God.
At a time when it was like people were not producing like such a vast amount of content. It's incredible. And then I that was the type of thing I was so comfortable. I knew the process. I was just I was at ease with it. That was the type of thing where I was like, I wouldn't even like read the script until like, I was on my way to the shoot. And just be like, start kind of, memorizing, be like, I could see the layout of the sketch, and I'm like, all right, we'll probably shoot up to this point. Very rarely do you, depending on what it is, very rarely do you shoot everything all at once. And I could kind of see like, all right, here's the chunk that we'll probably do. I'll memorize this, memorize that. It also really helps when I don't, monologues are tough because it's just a chunk of words to remember. But like when there's in this actual scene and dialogue, remembering what the other people are going to say, or not even remembering, but just they help guide you, where it's just like, well, I've got this. What about this? What about this outfit? What about this thing? And it's just like, because then at that point,
this terrible outfit.
Because then at that point, I'm just reacting to them. And it's also like I had a lot of freedom to, if I thought of and if I thought of something better, or if I thought of something that felt more natural to say, I had the freedom to say that. So that was at a time where I'm like, it was like I barely remember the first one. I barely remember any of them. Like I don't even know which is which, honestly. But like, it was just the thing that was strange to me, again, like I said, was being back in that same building. And I was like, there's just something I'm like cosmically linked to this, intersection in Williamsburg for some reason. It was just wild. I mean, like I lived down the street. Like I walked there. Like all three of those jobs, like I just walked there, and every, there was more than one Jeggings, but that one blew up, and it was like, I was always curious if it was more like just the thumbnail was like, oh, there's naked people in this, and then somebody would click
and it's on YouTube,
and it's like, well, what is this? Whoa. But thankfully they were also very funny, just like outrageous gags. And it's one of those things. I actually sent an email to somebody who's still over at college where I was like, we should do one of these where it's like on Zoom, where it's, Jeggings and Jeggings 2020. And they were like, I think people kind of burned out on Zoom. And I was like, all right, or we could just do nothing. Fine. We could do that.
It's like that actually would have been a funny idea, because it would, you could have also done something with like the virtual backgrounds like being like way too inappropriate or stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like, have you seen like all like I'll go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna lament. It's just like college humor ain't what it was. It's just like there's no there anymore.
Exactly. No, I'm completely with you on that. You're talking about some of the antics that have gone on Zoom. I've seen like different things on TikTok where kids they'll like rearrange their Zoom screens. Like you'll see them, like they'll change their names to reconnecting, so that way the teachers will think that like they lost their connection. And it's just like they're like,
that's hilarious.
Funny, like, dumb things that kids will just do to attempt to do stuff like that. And like there were so many things that like went on like that, and I was like, that actually would have been a really cool concept, I think, to kind of go after.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Maybe someday. Maybe when we're nostalgic for the pandemic.
I'm not really looking forward to that time when we're nostalgic about this time, but
I know.
Maybe that time will come a little bit sooner than later. I remember I was actually watching some of the Jeggings videos going into today, and just like kind of reminiscing on when me and my friends used to watch them. And I just remember there's the scene where there's one line that still is hilarious in my mind, and it's when you ask the teacher when she comes back, is whooping cough contagious, and she says not at all, and I'm like that couldn't be further from the truth.
That's right. Oh, that's
like
right.
I'm like that couldn't like that's so false. Like that was just like I was like oh my god, because and that also hit home at the time because I think when we were watching that, our school was having an outbreak of whooping cough, and it was actually like it was making like local news around here, like because it was like spreading, it was going from like one school to another, and it was like going from like town to town. And then my sister, she went to a vocational high school that drew from 13 different towns. So then it went to their town and it like spread like wildfire. And it was like, oh man, this whooping cough thing is getting really serious. And then, COVID happened, and it's kind of like, kind of dwarfed that in by like, millions, by like a million times.
Yeah.
But like, I remember when that was going on, and you ended up asking, "Is whooping cough contagious?" And the teacher, I think her name was in the skit was like Miss Pitsky or something like that, and she ended up saying, "Oh, it's not at all contagious." I'm just like, wow, that is so just
Good. I'm glad that we were part of the problem.
you were part of the problem. I always found that to be a hilarious like little tidbit. I was like that was always the thing for me with College Humor. It was like the littlest like little things that they could add, they did, and that's what always made it great. But there were like that. I was always glad to see you as a part of that. Now, another thing that I never realized that you were actually a part of it until unfortunately towards the end. I actually wasn't a big watching. I actually wasn't a big viewer of the Conan O'Brien show. But I recently just discovered that you kind of appeared as a bit of like a regular kind of cast character over there. How did that kind of all like come about?
That was something that because after I left WWE at the end of 2012, moved out to LA, and then excuse me, with the hopes of writing and performing on the Pete Holmes show,
Mm-hmm.
which we had done the pilot, and then now it's just up to whoever it's up to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was a long time before we heard that was going to go. And then we did that shows, late night show, sketches, monologue, interviews, for about a year, less than a year. But it was produced by Conan. And being in that same, kind of area, was I reconnected with all of the Conan writers. I realized I knew from back in New York, like really everybody, such funny people. And I was performing in sketches on the Pete Holmes show, and then I think slowly, like, my name would come up of like, who'd be good in this sketch, who's somebody we haven't seen before. And then it's one of those things where it's like you get an opportunity and just make the most of it. And they, I was able to show them that I could do it. And I started with some pre-tape stuff, which I was very comfortable with, because I'm like, oh, this is just, shooting sketches, you get a couple takes.
Yeah.
And then the live stuff, like I was really lucky. I got to be like, Conan's almost trademark was the strange person in the audience who would, interrupt. And I got to do that dozens of times. And there was something I loved about, getting one chance to do it. And, because once the audience is there, I mean, there was more pressure in the rehearsal with nobody there. And it's basically the writers pitching this idea finally to like Conan. And then Conan decides whether or not he wants to put it in his show. And I was always, I was able to the writers really liked me, and I was able to, you know, perform and deliver their material, and successfully get stuff, you know, on. So they kept bringing me back. I was just really, really lucky. And then when the show went from an hour to a half hour, so then there was less opportunities for me to come in. But I mean, that was something. It was like, it was almost like a new college humor, where I'm like, I'm in here like once a month. You know, this is a real gig. This is, you know. And then we had a kid at that point, and I was like, this is saving our ass. And it's like, you know, I'm you know, for real. And then the show, and then COVID happened. I was actually there the Friday before everything went down. I was like, it was just such a great opportunity. I was in such a, it was such a great problem to have, because I had booked a commercial that was shooting on Monday. And then they were trying to decide whether or not a sketch I was in would go. I was already there shooting a sketch, and then they're fitting me for a costume that they're trying to pitch on Monday. And I was like, I don't think I can be here on Monday. And then the writer was like trying to figure out when we could do it. And then, you know, I shot the commercial on Monday. The NBA shut down on Wednesday. And then now here we are, you know, a year later.
Yeah,
and
almost more than that at this point.
I mean, and then the craziest thing was when Conan started up again, they were like, do you feel comfortable shooting, if we send you a script, shooting something on your phone, and somebody will come drop off a costume, somebody will drop off props, and you shoot it, send us the files, and, you know. And so I did that like a couple of times last year, which was really bizarre. And then here and there, we would do like a Zoom sketch where it's just like, just be on your computer, you know. And then I'm really grateful that I got to be there live one last time, because then once Conan had come to an end, and he was like, you know, I'm not going to keep doing the TBS show. And then the studio space they use at Warner Brothers, they cleared that soundstage, which was really bizarre. And then he was just shooting the show out of the theater at Largo, in West Hollywood. And I got, after I was vaccinated, and then I still had to go get a test, I got to come in, and I played a cicada.
I think it was.
Yeah. And when I was actually coming in, the casting guy was like, oh, this is really excited. You're the first person that, you know, outside of like the immediate, you know, core group of, you know, employees, that you're the first outsider we're bringing in. Which I was like, I got kind of emotional. I was like, that's, I'm like touched that they trust me to that length. And then when I was there, I was like, this is probably going to be the last time I'm here. And so it's just wild to get that, you know, opportunity, and just, you know, just waiting for something to finish, and just kind of hang out with Andy and talking to him. And, you know, he's the greatest. And then finally seeing Conan, and it was funny, my last interaction with Conan, he was like, you know, he came in and he's like walking past me. He goes, oh, hey, great to see you. And he slaps me on the, you know, just kind of like, hey, good to see you. And he hits me on the shoulder, and then takes one step, and he's like, oh my God, I'm so, I don't know what the protocol is. I probably shouldn't have touched you, or, and I was like, imagine if I'd just gotten my second shot. And he was like, oh God. But I honestly, I didn't realize that we were shooting, because the process was so different. Usually, like, doing a sketch on Conan meant you're there all day. You go, you get fit for a costume. You run it with the writer, you run it with Conan. Conan decides whether it's going to go, and then when it's time to shoot the show, you do the thing. And so we were running through. I thought it was just because we're in an empty theater. This was also before the audience came back, and I thought we were just running a rehearsal, and we did it twice, and then they were like, "Great, you're good, you can go." And I was like, "Oh shit, I didn't." I didn't know that was it.
Yeah, it's like, wait, really?
Yeah, and then so it was also the quickest day I ever had there. Yeah, I was like, why did I even bother putting? Why did I bother putting money in the meter? But yeah, it was so nobody seems to know what his HBO Max show is going to be, and everybody's everybody I know that was there they're all like looking for new jobs, and nobody. So I don't know if there'll be something for me to do there that'd be super cool, but it's a strange end of an era, and I've always been since I was a kid and like Johnny Carson was on, like such a big fan of late night TV, late night talk shows, and to get to be that was just my dream, was to get to be a part of something like that. And my favorite thing in the world was showing up at Conan and just them saying, "Are you available tomorrow?" Yes. And I would show up. And my favorite moment would always be either the stage director or the costume person would say, "Do you know what you're doing today?" I'd say, "Nope." Just like they trusted me, and they were like, and it gave me a lot of confidence in my ability of like, just give me, it felt like the old College Humor days where I'd be walking up to the thing and be like, "All right, let me just start looking at the script now," because it's like I can do this and I know how to do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually really cool to hear about. Kind of just going into that. It is unfortunate that Conan is now going, to HBO Max. I mean, I wish him the best of luck there. I hope that, whatever he does there, he, continues to do what he does. I think for so many people, because it's like, because everything is so up in the air, everyone is just like, what the hell is he going to do over here? Like, what is the deal going to be? I mean, especially you're talking about those guys, like not, especially you talking about like those guys, like not really, looking for new jobs, like doing stuff like that. It's like, is he just going to get an HBO staff? Like, what's the deal going to be? Like I do wonder how that is going to all turn out.
I'm very curious because he was I mean, nothing against anybody that's on late night now, but it's just like, it's like Carson, Letterman, Conan. It's just that's the lineage. That is the great. It doesn't matter what the history books will say or whatever. That's the lineage. Tonight's show starring Johnny Carson. Late Night with David Letterman and Conan. It's just I don't know that. I don't know that there's a place in the world for that for that anymore. And it's just, and the late night shows are just so like, they just seem so less interested in being funny, and they're just so fixated on being liked. It's strange. I don't know.
No, it's all trying to follow a formula now. It all seems like very, like they all just seem like, spin-offs of each other. There doesn't really seem to be anything that really uniquely like separates it. Like they always feel that there has to be like some separation into a music act just to settle that, just to kind of serve that fan base, even if the guy isn't that musically talented. There always has to be some sort of a thing that kind of serves this purpose. And it doesn't end up, it just kind of ruins the authenticity of it. Conan, I kind of agree with you, was kind of like one of the last guys that could, really like do his own thing, and it wasn't ever gonna, it wasn't gonna really ever be questioned.
Yeah, and it's just I was just so, again, just the timing of it. I'm so grateful that I got the opportunity to be in this city while he was doing that show, because nobody's doing like really far out, like smart and stupid, sketch comedy, like live sketch comedy anymore. Even SNL, it's just like, it's just such a formula, and it's just, I don't know. We've hopefully, I don't know. We'll see what Conan does next, but something may very well be lost forever in television and comedy. It's too bad.
Yeah, I hope not, but you got to hope that, hopefully he can continue on with HBO Max. I luckily do have a subscription there, so I'll make sure to check it
Yeah.
out when he goes over there. So that'll be good. That'll be
Yeah.
good to see. One of the other things I wanted to touch on in the show, we've hinted at it multiple times throughout. It has been your involvement with WWE. You did some writing over there, did a lot of stuff kind of over with them. How did that all kind of come about? Like you've kind of mentioned like different roles that you've had with them since. But like how did like a College Humor and like a Conan, like how did you kind of get in the door for WWE? And like, first of all, like maybe how did you kind of become like a fan of them in the first place?
Oh, I mean, I've been a fan of wrestling since before I can remember. I mean, like,
Yeah.
some of my like earliest memories are just watching wrestling on TV. I had an older brother, I still do, who I remember waking up. It seems like I would have been too old to be in a crib, but my memory is like maybe there was like a guardrail on the bed. I was, it's like a transition bed or something, but I have a vivid memory. We had a TV in the bedroom my brother and I shared for like video games, and a ColecoVision. Kids, ColecoVision is the future. And one morning on a Saturday, I woke up and he was watching wrestling, and he goes, "Matt, look, wrestling's on." And then, I've been hooked my whole life. And so again, like with my approach to like getting into comedy or getting into acting and getting into anything, it's just like whatever it is you want to do, you can go and do it. It's that was the one thing people didn't, everybody was doing their best. My parents did a great job. All my teachers, guidance counselors, professors, whatever, everybody did the best they could with the information they had. But the idea that pursuing something that isn't a guaranteed paycheck immediately, the idea that that's somehow a bad idea or foolish to try is wrong. It is absolutely incorrect. Any industry you want to break into, be it medicine, be it movies, be it gardening, construction, I don't know what, you start off at the bottom for shit money. And every other job all my friends in finance, everybody starts off with an internship. That is an unpaid position. And just because going into comedy and acting took longer and I had to have, more side hustles, doesn't change the fact that the opportunity is there. You just have to have the experience to move forward with it. And writing and wrestling was no different, because I knew the product, I knew the industry just from being a fan, just from watching, and the more that you participate in something, the more you understand it. Same with, if you want to learn how to write, you have to read. If you want to learn how to act, you have to watch. If you want to get involved in wrestling, watch wrestling.
Yeah.
I never made it a secret. This is the other big thing I would say. Never make it a secret what it is you're passionate about. Make sure everyone is aware what you're into, because when WWE started reaching out to TV writers, and I had some very small here and there TV writing experience, they were looking for specifically comedy writers, people with a background in TV, people with, knowledge of like production, reality TV, comfortable with celebrities, live audiences. These are all things that I was gaining experience in, just doing stand-up and being part of the scene and getting different jobs here and there. And I was known in, the comedy circles, like I'm the biggest wrestling fan that there is, So when WWE was reaching out to TV writers, they were like, we're looking for comedy writers, TV writers to work at WWE. Everybody was like, I don't want to do that. but I know the guy who would like to do that. And after the first person who sent me the job posting and the HR's, contact info, 6 or 7 more people as the weeks went on sent me the same information. They're like, oh, they're reaching out to you're the perfect guy for this, and it just started from there. Like, I contacted HR, they set up an interview. I had to write a sample, and then I went in and pitched my idea to the head writers, and then the whole process was probably about 2 or 3 months, and then I got the job, and then I started there, worked there when I was living in New York, going to Stamford, commuting to the Stamford, Connecticut, where the big home office is, and did that for about a year, a little less than a year. I also did several months on the road with them, traveling to TV and, working hand in hand with the wrestlers, with Vince. And it was great. But I was like, there's other things I want to be doing. And I know that this is not, the stories I heard were that this is not a long-term gig. And so, and plus the Pete Holmes show was hopefully going to go. And I was like, you know what? Things just happened the way that they happened. And, we lost our apartment in New York, and my wife was like, well, if we got to move, we either have to move like an hour away from the city, or everybody we know has already moved to LA. We're going to wind up there eventually because of what we do. Let's just move to LA and pull the trigger. And so did that. And then a few years later, WWE reached back out to me. I quit at the end of 2012, and then at the beginning of 2016, they were like, well, how about you just stay in LA, you consult remotely, we'll give you assignments each week, and you don't have to come to TV, you don't have to get yelled at by Vince, you can just send in your stuff and then keep doing comedy and acting. And I was like, this is the deal I've been holding out for.
It's not a bad gig whatsoever. That's actually a great deal.
I was like, please, yes, thank you. And so then I wound up doing that for like 2 years, twice as long as my first run there. And I got to be involved in a lot of really cool, funny stuff that, I'm really proud of. And, like, I know that the fans enjoyed, and, it's just, I am a fan, so it's just like I enjoyed it. So, exactly. So that's so that was the opportunity I was given. I'm extremely grateful for it.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's awesome. That's awesome to hear about. I mean, I know for me growing up, I wasn't ever too huge into wrestling. My cousin Troy, who, I was, we were always close growing up. He was always, really big into wrestling, throughout the years. He was, huge with it. And he ended up, he kind of introduced me to it. I remember we used to, like, there was actually a WWE video game back in the day where, you play as like all the different characters and you get to smash the chairs over each other's heads. And it was like just complete mayhem. And I mean, that's probably how I got into it growing up. And that's how I learned about different guys like that, like Kane and Big Show and all those different guys that, I probably were probably around the time that I was, in that younger demographic. But I see in the background, I see your NXT poster, I see different things like that. Kind of going into it, surprisingly, wrestling was kind of one of the first things to return, in like during, after kind of COVID hit. I was surprised by that because of, how much wrestling, like there's the allure of the crowd. There's like kind of a lot of stuff that goes into that. So when wrestling was one of the first things to come back, I was really surprised by it. And it was, pretty interesting to see.
Oh yeah, no, Vince is not going to miss a beat. And it was very curious. Like, how is Vince going to not, because I mean, like, after like 9/11, they were the first thing to come back right away, live event.
Yeah.
Huge gathering of people. It's like, yeah, this is Vince's MO. And so, the NBA shuts down on Wednesday. That Friday, they had their crew down in the Performance Center, and which has now turned into a, much more functional building that they've even had fans in to watch the show. But it's like, then it was a gym, it was a workout space, it was a training center.
Mhm.
And then they turned it into their home base, and it was just like, all right, we're going to keep going, no fans.
Yeah.
And at first they would do like half the show, here's wrestling with no fans, and it's silent and it's weird and it's strange. And now we're going to show reruns of like, this past WrestleMania, and like, highlights of like the biggest matches and stuff. And then they eventually just went full board into, here's new stuff. And then they, God bless them. And it's just, it's one of these things too, where like, when COVID was coming down, I was like, please, just couldn't this wait until after WrestleMania? We had our tickets. We were going to go to Florida. It's just like, God damn it. And then, so now, and then it was supposed to be this year's Mania was supposed to be in LA. And then that's been pushed, 2 years now. And it's just, man, oh man. Yeah. But we're finally, I think in August 1st is finally going to be the first wrestling show I've been to since like January of 2020. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's like
crazy.
I mean, there's just nothing like it. And it's almost like, missing a limb, not being able to go to wrestling shows. And of course, also being in Southern California, it's like there was a glut of wrestling shows that I can be going to. And it's just, can't wait to get back into it.
Yeah, I can't wait to get back to a lot of stuff too. I can't wait for you to be able to get back to stuff like that as well. It seems like it's going to be a lot of fun when you can get back into those arenas and, just get back to, screaming crowds like that. I think I'm going to be trying to go to like a Red Sox game tomorrow. I'll try to go do some stuff like that. Hopefully, be doing some more normal experiences around here. At least, in Mass, the COVID stuff has gotten, a good bit better as of late.
Yeah.
But, kind of going into some stuff, currently, we've talked about a lot of the stuff that you've done, throughout your career and different things like that. Current day, we were kind of talking on it before the show. What are some things that you're up to now in terms of maybe, some things with comedy, some things with acting? What are some things that, you're looking at, in the future and trying to go for right now?
At December 2019, very end of the year, I recorded a comedy album, and then was able to release that in 2020 during COVID, called Sober Dad. And it's on wherever you listen to music online. You can find Matt McCarthy Sober Dad. It's a nice chunk of comedy. It's got it's some of the most personal stuff I've ever written and performed, and I'm really proud of it. And it's just it's one of those deals where I was sitting backstage before that recording, and I was nervous, but I realized, as I was, just kind of taking inventory of my feelings, I was like, oh, I'm nervous just because I want this to go well, because I'm really proud of this material. But I realized, I was like, I'm not nervous because I'm not sure if this stuff is funny. Sometimes before shows, feel some nerves because it's like,
could this bomb? Could this?
Yeah. I was like, because I'm like running through the set in my head, I was like, no, this is all funny, solid stuff. It's just, so that was like, I don't know. I just got a real shot of gratitude in that, because I was like, I've been working really hard on this stuff, and just, I'm just excited to get it out there. And I'm like, I know this is going to go well. I'm just like, I hope I just don't, step on a word or whatever. But yeah, it felt good to really put myself out there and just, I think up until this point, like a lot of my, like particularly my stand-up, I've just been interested in being funny, and not as in tune with, who I am as a person. And this was like really a great opportunity to, to get in touch with that.
Yeah.
in a very funny way. So there's that. I mean, there's like the commercials that I shot right before the pandemic have finally started running. And then it's just a matter of, as things are opening up back in LA, and I'm just like, great, I can start. Like, I had a lot of stuff ready to go right before the world shut down, and now it's just like, okay, let's get back to doing that stuff.
Yeah, that's always
Yeah.
that's what I've noticed from a lot of people. It's just like everyone had like so much stuff going into like March of 2020, and as soon as everything shut down, it was just like, well, what do we do with all this? Like there was just so much like ambiguity, and like what do we do, and like there were so many questions up in the air. And now that
Yeah.
it's all coming, now that it's all coming back, I've noticed for a lot of people, it's like, well, now like how the heck am I supposed to do all this at once? It's all kind of just craziness, and I completely understand where you're coming from with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just excited to. Plus, it's just my son, he's 5.5,
Oh
and
my God,
so
that's awesome.
suddenly my house turned into a one-person kindergarten for a year, and then he was going back to in person for a little bit, and then now it's summer vacation. So actually, this month is the first time like he's at baseball camp during the day.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's the first opportunity I've had to be in a quiet house for like the whole day and actually sit down and write and get back into the work of doing what I love to do. So it's an exciting time, and it's just I appreciate the little things a lot more. That's for sure. I think we all do.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely started to appreciate the little things a lot more with COVID and different things like that. I've taken a lot of appreciation, and I think there's a lot to kind of go with that. But Matt, before we go, something I did want to touch on kind of quickly. It is kind of maybe going back to how I kind of rediscovered you in the process of getting this whole interview together. And it was through your TikTok, which unfortunately I think for both of us has become the bane of our existence. I'm just, I mean, I just remember downloading TikTok in 2019. I was just like, oh, there'll be some great stuff on it. And now I'm on it every day. And it's like, I'm like, my God, this is like insane.
Right.
So, but, I found you again through TikTok, and I was so glad that I did, because, it just brought back a lot of memories I had from growing up, just watching some of your videos. But kind of going off that, on your TikTok, one of the things that you really like to talk to about at length is your real is your insane collection of movies that you have. I mean, it is something to be marveled at, the collection that you've shown off. You've talked about going to yard sales and picking up different movies and stuff like that, and people have I think pretty much just challenge you in the comments. It's like, do you have this movie? And you just go over to your cabinet. It's like, yep, I got it. Like, when did that kind of all come about, and what is that what has that kind of been like, just like having just such an immense collection like this? Like, where did this all kind of come from?
It's just been my whole life. I remember the first VCR we got when I was like 4 or 5, and trying to tape Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas on TV, and then waking up the next morning and we did it wrong and the tape was just static.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and it's just like, so early on in like, how the fuck do you work a VCR?
Yeah.
So I still have tapes from those days. I have tapes that are 35 plus years old.
Wow.
And it's just been, I've just always enjoyed it. I just have always even when everything went totally digital, and the streaming is more omnipresent than ever. It's almost thrust me further into it, because it's just like, if I have the urge to watch something, if it's available on something I subscribe to, great. I can just watch it there. But it's just also, there is this strange thing of like, unless it's like with Netflix, for example, unless it's like an original Netflix, in-house production.
Yeah, it's never it's not guaranteed. It eventually will go off the service.
Yeah, it's going to disappear at some point, and it's just like, well, I have, the complete series of, Cheers or the Golden Girls or, and it's like I don't like with this. The Simpsons is an interesting example. Like Disney Plus has everything, but it's just they've cropped the image so that it will fit on like the big widescreen TVs that everyone has.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this just doesn't look right. This isn't like, I don't have a problem with the little, like when I was growing up, I didn't have problems with the black bars on top of the screen because I knew that I'm seeing the full image. I'm not missing something. And now it's we've gone this weird full circle thing where now we have the TVs where you don't need the black bars on top anymore. But if you're watching anything with a 4:3 ratio, they have black bars on the side. And now people are like really freaking out about it because they're like, I don't want the.
I mean, you saw that a lot with Zack Snyder's Justice League because he shot it in that 4:3 ratio.
Oh my God. Right. Yeah. So I don't know. People are just out of their minds.
Well,
so
that's very valid.
Yeah. So there's the practical aspect of just having access to something without anyone being able to take it away from me. But that's just a new, that's putting the cart before the horse. I always had a love of physical media.
Yeah.
Just the artwork, just being a tactile person. I've never enjoyed reading things on my phone or a tablet. Like I like holding a book in my hand.
Yeah.
I like having comic books. I don't like any of that stuff. And then the same with videotapes and DVDs or like laser discs, especially. Just the look of it too, of like when I'm watching that, okay, it's not in 4K, it's not even in 1080, but I'm like, but for me, I don't know, maybe I'm just old, maybe I'm just, it looks better on videotape. It looks better in analog to me. Like there's a movie theater in LA, the New Beverly, Quentin Tarantino owns it, and they only show movies on 35 millimeter. And, I'm just so excited to be going to the movies again. And went the other night with my wife to see a double feature. And it's just like watching a movie with like, imperfections on the image. I'm like, this is more immersive to me than if everything looks squeaky clean, and it somehow makes it faker. So there's that. So it's just like, I don't know. I've just always had a love of, and plus it's cheap, it's just, everything is, I buy used, everything is either from yard sales or thrift stores, or again, like I said, like when I'm open about my interests and, I say like, I love DVDs, I love VHS tapes. We're like, cool, I don't want mine anymore. You want them? I'm like, yeah, sure. So it's just like, I get that. Plus there's also just stuff that's just not streaming anywhere. There's just weird random stuff. And now you're getting a lot of these really cool boutique distributors like Vinegar Syndrome or Arrow or even like Criterion. It's just where they're like, here's this random movie that it's just like, finally you can get a copy of, or, I just love it. I just have always had a deep affection for it. And then, the collection is probably like 6,000 plus videos.
That's incredible.
Yeah, like a lot of pro wrestling. But again, it's just like, a lot of the wrestling, it's like when I worked there, you get DVDs of everything.
Yeah.
So that like really compounded. Plus, I was just like, before these streaming things, even like with the wrestling stuff, like with the WWE Network, that's a great example, because that thing before it went up, it was the only way to be able to watch old stuff was tape trading, and then like, getting your hands on, copies of copies. So I have like all these binders full of like burned DVDs of, shows from the 80s and 70s and 90s and stuff. And then the WWE Network goes up, but it's just like they have a lot of stuff. The quality's better, but then some things are different. Some things, like the music isn't the same. They're not going to pay for the licensing of the music. Then other things they're going to take down because it's like it didn't age well, or it's like you can't really show this kind of thing anymore, or like just different things here and there. And then they get bought by Peacock. Now WWE Network is on Peacock, and they've gone over there. Most of the stuff is gone now, and then they're like, well, it'll be back up before SummerSlam. It's like, well, that's right around the corner. When is all this old stuff going to be going back up?
Exactly.
And so then it's just suddenly it's like, I'm glad I have all these DVDs still, because it's just it's here. No one can take it from me. I'm not going to wake up one morning and, like, I don't know if you remember, like a couple years ago, everybody with an iPhone woke up and the new U2 album.
Oh my God.
and people were like, how dare you do this? Like, get rid of it. Like, go away. I don't know, man. I like the idea of like having it. Like, this is mine. This isn't.
It's tactile. Yeah. It's like it allows you just to have it. No, I mean, I completely agree with that. And like the analogy you made about like wanting to read something like physically, like I have that still with like at colleges now they'll say to us like, oh, like we have the virtual textbook, and I'm like, I don't want the virtual textbook. I want like the hard nosed thing, because it's like in my mind I'm just like, if I remember something from a book, I'm like okay, it probably came not maybe in the middle, maybe not in towards like the end, but like right around here. And like I can remember like certain parts of a book, and I can remember certain things like that as to where it kind of fell in during that part of the story. When it's like, oh, it's just in this virtual thing, I'm like, I can't think of it like that. I'm like it you kind of just lose the ability to kind of think of stuff like that. And when it's something is more tactile, you kind of just remember more kind of things like that.
Yeah, there's something about the experience. Like, I like the process. I like, my son, sometimes like he's like, why aren't we watching it? I was like, oh, I'm rewinding the tape. Like, it takes a minute,
Yeah.
Even just like I'll put on things for him, and it's just like, because like with whatever, it's just like you press a button and on the movie's playing. It's like there's that lost experience of the coming attractions of like coming soon on Disney DVD, all that. It's just like, I don't know. Laserdiscs, I'm just really like taken with. I love how big, like they're as big as an album, and the artwork. It's just like you can actually really see the artwork, and then also like you have to turn it over. It's like you watch like half the movie, and then it just stops, and it's like, I just enjoy that natural break of, all right, I'm going to turn the thing over now. It's just like, I don't know. It's just, I like a commercial break too, where I'm just like, all right, I'm going to get up, get some water, use the bathroom. It's just, I don't know. I find myself more times than not, like I got to keep my phone in the other room when I'm watching something. It keeps me engaged when there's actually something physical. I actually get to have a relationship with it, as opposed to just watching something and forgetting it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm completely with you there, Matt. I agree with you 100%. But Matt, I really just want to say, all in all, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It has been a total blast to have you on, man.
Well, thanks. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I'm really happy you asked. I'm glad this worked out.
I really do appreciate it. But it is unfortunately time to say that we are now down to the wire, which means that I'm going to do a quick little, just like, spiel of everything we talked about in the episode. Obviously, we welcomed in American comedian Matt McCarthy to the show to talk about all the things he's done so far in his career and the things he's going to be doing. Obviously, we talked about his time over at College Humor. We talked about his role within the other guys, his time with Conan, and his time as a writer with the WWE. We also spoke on some things that Matt is doing, currently as well, including his album, Sober Dad, and his, collection of movies that he's talked about on his TikTok. But, all in all, it has been an amazing interview. I was really glad to get him on the show. But if you guys are not following Down to the Wire at this point, what are you guys doing? We're available wherever you guys, wherever you guys can get your podcasts. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube. But the main hub to reach us through is our Instagram. You can follow that at down.to-the-wire. Again, at down.to-the-wire. Matt, if there's anything you want to shout out, I'll let you do it now.
You can follow me on all forms of social media at McCarthy Redhead, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you want to hit me up. That's where I'm going to be. And check out my album Sober Dad, available on all digital music platforms, Bandcamp, Amazon Music, Apple Music, wherever you want to find it, Spotify. And listen to the We Watch Wrestling podcast. New episodes every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts.
I can't wait to tune in. But from Down to the Wire, I'm Brian Costa.
And I'm Matt McCarthy.
And we will see you guys next time. Take care.